If you find your adult patients are really difficult to deal with, and I do not, and I work in a pretty affluent neighborhood with what someone might call a tough patient base, work on your verbal skills. There's almost nothing you can't solve with good verbal skills. And if you're waiting for patients to bring problems to you, yeah, you're gonna have issues. Because again, knock on wood, my patient base is somewhat demanding, but I get very little grief in treatment because the ability to foresee a problem and deal with it before they bring it up. Hello there, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the OrthoPreneurs podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Glenn Krieger, and today I want to bring up a conversation that one of you had with me, right? So I love, first of all, getting your feedback, and more importantly, if there's a topic you want me to talk about, please bring it up. Just DM me, message me on Facebook, or email me, whatever you want to get, because I would love to address the topics that are most interesting to you. And one of the ones that I just got recently was this. Hey, Glenn, I know I hear you talk a lot about the fact you love treating adults. I don't get it. I hate treating adults. They're not my thing. They're so picky and annoying, and I can't understand why you like that. So can you talk a bit about that? And I'm happy to. I have to be honest, I'm truly blown away with how much most orthodontists will dive into the pediatric space and want to avoid the adult space, or how much they love treating kids as opposed to how much they love treating adults. Now, I want to be crystal clear as I start this conversation, which will only last a few minutes. I like treating kids. I like treating adults. But if you said to me, which one gives me far more fulfillment? Adults, all day long. Which one would I prefer to treat all day long? Adults. I know that's unusual. Now let's be honest, people. If you're listening to this, don't sit there and tell me, oh, I love treating adults too. Because I know from my conversation with literally hundreds of you that I would say 97% of you from my conversations would take a 12-year-old class 1 crowded over an adult class 1 crowded all day long. When we get into adults, the conversation can also dive into the whole interdisciplinary situation, which I know the overwhelming majority of orthodontists want no part of. They don't want to be coordinating with a prosthodontist and an oral surgeon or whomever. And yet, you coordinate with a pediatric dentist all day long. So let's talk about the pediatric versus the adult and why I love treating adults. Now, number one, it's no secret, you already know this, that for 20 years I was a restorative doc. John Wayne used to say, it's not bragging, it's just a fact. I was top of my game as a restorative doc. I did massive cases back in the day when total implant-supported prostheses were not a common thing. I was doing tons of them. I've shared with you lab bills of mine that were almost $18,000 just for the lab bill alone. I worked with Swiss-trained technicians, and I did hundreds and hundreds of hours of CE every year. And I wanted to be able to show my work and people wouldn't be able to tell the difference between me and a prosthodontist, or maybe mine was hopefully better. So that was the kind of work I did on a regular basis, right? Full occlusal equilibrations, the kind of stuff that people just hate doing. So when I come to the adult mouth now in ortho, how easy is it? It's a joke. And again, it's not that hard to get there with an adult. Why? Because I can have a conversation with them. There's some fundamental differences between adults and kids that if you're not embracing adults, I want you to think about these things. And now this conversation isn't about why I like adults more than kids. It's about why you should appreciate adults in many ways. Number one, they're the one paying the bill. So who values the treatment most of the time? The one paying the bill. If I have one more 13-year-old kid, boy or girl, who I say to them on the D-bond day, hey, by the way, do you like the way things look before we take off your braces or end your Invisalign? And they look at me and go, well, I really don't look. Really? And you say you get fulfillment from those kinds of cases. Now, if you're a technician and getting a beautiful smile and you love doing it and you know they'll thank you 30 years from now, that's great. But if someone just looks at you and goes, I really don't care. That's like cooking a really nice meal, sending it to the table, they wolf it down and walk away from the table. Right? I hope you sure enjoy cooking the meal because the satisfaction you're getting from them eating it is not there. So I love adults because they pay the bill and they value what I do. And the pickiness that most describe actually is them appreciating what we're doing. It's very rare to have an adult who says, they're unhappy with what you've done. I really hate what you've done. I wish I'd never done this. Even the pickiest of patients, unless they're really pathologic, and those exist, will say, man, I really appreciate everything you've done. If we could just get this one tooth fixed. Right? I have no problem with that. Because back in the day when I was doing 28 restorations, which one would you rather do? One single front tooth that I can easily move, or 28 porcelain veneers that you put in and a month later they come back and say, I don't know if I like the shape of these, or I don't know if I like the color of these. So adults are really easy to communicate with. And most importantly, the thing you should appreciate about treating adults is this. It's the fact that your treatment and conversations are with the patient and the patient alone. It is very rare in my practice, and my practice is overwhelming. What I treat is overwhelming adults. My amazing partner, Erin Albritton, takes most of the kids, and I treat adults almost exclusively, probably 85, 90% would be my guess at the end of the day. And there are kids I take on, I have no problem with that. But the thing about it is, if somebody's not brushing well, which is rare in an adult, right? Another reason. If someone's not wearing their elastics well, a little rarer in adults than with kids, I can have a conversation with the patient, and that's it, and it's done. And it's very rare to have a spouse or a boyfriend, girlfriend playing a significant role in that conversation. But with a kid, every time I have a conversation about elastics, every time I have a conversation about home care, every time I have a conversation about when we're going to be finished, I have to have that conversation, or my team has to have that conversation a second time. And don't forget the fact that, for me at least, some of the most rewarding work I do is the debilitated adult dentition. And I know that's not necessarily what you want, but what I can charge for my surgical cases, for my interdisciplinary cases, even for my standard adult cases, is much more than I can charge for my pediatric cases. So they tend to be much more profitable. And again, they're more responsible, they're paying the bills, I have one conversation, they're really appreciative at the end, and they refer their friends significantly. So again, I hope this explains the answer why I love treating adults. And the last thing I'll leave you with is this. If you find your adult patients are really difficult to deal with, and I do not, and I work in a pretty affluent neighborhood with what someone might call a tough patient base, work on your verbal skills, right? And I'll do another 5-Minute Friday on that one, but there's almost nothing you can't solve with good verbal skills. And if you're waiting for patients to bring problems to you, yeah, you're gonna have issues. But I'll do another 5-Minute Friday on this one, and we'll talk about verbal skills and talking to patients because, again, knock on wood, my patient base is somewhat demanding, but I get very little grief in treatment because the ability to foresee a problem and deal with it before they bring it up. And that's what it's all about. So again, I hope this conversation has sort of stimulated you to start taking on maybe more adult patients, to maybe market, which is what I did, directly for adult patients because I wanted an adult practice. Because of what you can charge for it, because of the interactions and all the other reasons I talked about. Hopefully, you're going to go to the OrthoPreneurs Summit in Vegas in 2025. These are the kinds of conversations we're going to have about how to make you more profitable, how to lower your stress, and it's clinical as well. So when you got guys like Ron Ronconi, Tom Pitt, Stuart Frost, Maz Moshiri, Diego Pedro, Dan Bills, John Graham, there's more and more people I could add to that are going to tell you how to get better clinical results and how to run a better practice. So go to opsummit2025.com. For every 150 tickets sold, the price goes up $200. And here's a little hint, it's about to go back up. So go to opsummit2025.com and sign up now.